The following podcast by Fusion Family Wealth, LLC, Fusion, is intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the podcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Fusion or any other investment professional of your choosing. Please see additional important disclosure at the end of this podcast. A copy of Fusion's current written disclosure brochure discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request or at www.fusionfamilywealth.com.
Welcome to the Crazy Wealthy Podcast with your host, Jonathan Blau. Whether you're just starting out or are an experienced investor, join Jonathan as he seeks to illuminate and demystify the complexities of making consistently rational financial decisions under conditions of uncertainty. He'll chat with professionals from the advice world, entrepreneurs, executives, and more to share fresh perspectives on making sound decisions that maximize your wealth. And now, here's your host.
Welcome to another episode of the Crazy Wealthy Podcast. I'm very pleased today to have as our guest Arnie Preminger, the founder of our favorite charitable organization known as the Sunrise Organization, which has created an environment for families who are underprivileged economically and also have the misfortune of having at least one child stricken with cancer. And the organization was founded to support the family structure, not just the child with cancer. And I'm not going to go beyond that. I'm going to let Arnie elaborate on all of that. But Arnie, thanks again for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So why don't we start by talking about a little bit about the organization itself and its mission, and then we can after that go into a little bit more deeply about how it evolved, how you came up with the idea for it, and successfully implemented it to where it is today.
Thanks, Jonathan. So the original impetus for this was to create day camps for children with cancer. You probably hear a lot about different camps for children with cancer, summer camps, but they're all sleepaway camps. And this is our 20th year, and in 20 years, there have been no other organizations in the world that have replicated the model that we created, which was day camping for kids with cancer. So basically, the difference is they get picked up at home in the morning, they come back home at night. Why is that important for children with cancer? Because especially for children who are young or children who have been recently diagnosed, they're not going to go to sleepaway camp. They can't be away from their doctors. They're in chemotherapy. Sometimes that can be 5 days a week. There are incredible demands on these children, and having something to do for the summer that is normal, if you will, is an incredible gift to them. And so Sunrise originally simply began by offering summer day camp for children with cancer. And we'll talk about what that's all about and, why it's so interesting and so difficult. But we've expanded over the years to in-hospital programs. So we have staff that is in 35 hospitals around the country now, working with children as you're sitting in waiting rooms, when they're bedside, when they're getting their chemo, et cetera, to distract them and to engage them in ways that they're not thinking about the fact that they're, putting this stuff into their bodies right now and they're not going to feel well. We've also gone into virtual programs. We started that during the COVID period. And now we have 205 hospitals across 7 countries that show our virtual programs to children who are bedridden. So it's really become a multifaceted organization, but our primary focus is bringing joy and a sense of normalcy back to children with cancer and also their siblings, because their siblings are affected by this in a significant way as well. And one of the things that we learned when we were first setting up the camp, the first camp back in 2006, was that the siblings go through so much emotional pain and so much emotional strain that offering them an opportunity to be part of this as well and not to have another thing that's just for the sick child and that leaves out the brother or the sister has really been a godsend to them too. So that's in a nutshell who we are.
Right. And I know also it's important, not just for the siblings, but I guess because these are underprivileged families and the parents are limited in their resources, not just financially, but time-wise, so that the camp, I guess, by allowing the siblings to become part of the experience, free up, I guess, more time for the parents to do what they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I always found to be really touching part of what you do.
When you deal with something like childhood cancer, whatever economic strata you're on, you're going to be impacted financially. And so about 35% of the families that come to one of our programs are, sitting at like 200% above the poverty line. And then, when one parent has to either stop working or curtail their work in order to bring a child to chemotherapy continuously, or if it's a single parent family, there's basically no money coming in. So those are the extremes. But there are a lot of cases like that we deal with. But even on the higher end, people who have been comfortable in life, suddenly you're dealing with, childhood cancer. And again, it's curtailing of work. It's experimental treatments that aren't covered by insurance. It's deductibles. It's co-pays. It's traveling. It's the impact on the entire family unit. So everybody is affected regardless of where you are on the economic ladder. And that's something that we understood from the very beginning, which is why everything that we do is offered for free.
So Arnie, in terms of the catalyst for the birth of this organization, what brought the idea to you? I know it comes from a place that most people wouldn't guess if we gave them 100 guesses. I know you're a Beatles fan, and you had an opportunity to secure a ticket to see Paul McCartney. And I'll leave the teaser there and let you tell the story of the birth of the idea of the organization.
So what had happened was, you're right. I'm a huge Beatles fan. Grew up in that era, and what had happened was that I had gotten a notification back in 2005 that Paul McCartney was going to be playing at Avery Fisher Hall, and I was able to secure a single ticket for it. To see him at Avery Fisher Hall is like a dream. It's not Madison Square Garden, right? It's a much more intimate, closed-in setting. And so I didn't look into it any deeper than the fact that he was playing. And when I showed up at the box office to pick up my ticket, I saw that it was a benefit for Paul Newman's Hole in the Wall gang camps. These are sleepaway camps. They're called Serious Fun Network now, but they used to be called the Hole in the Wall gang camps. And these are sleepaway camps for children with serious chronic illnesses. And it had begun with cancer many, many years ago. And so I kind of had in my head that, this was primarily for children with cancer. And rather than it just being McCartney on the stage, they had all of these superstars. Julia Roberts was there that night. Robin Williams was there. Paul Newman, of course. There was a quartet, a string quartet. And McCartney only played 2 songs, but it was enough. But the real superstars on the stage that night were the kids. There were all these kids from the camp introducing the stars, and they were showing videos from camp, and you could just see the joy on these children's faces. And they were even reading letters from parents, who had written, even parents from children who had passed and who had spoken about, what their child's experiences had been, how much joy it had brought them, during the most difficult times. And so my background was in day camping. I've been part of the JCC movement for many, many years. Probably since I was 19 years old, I started working at JCCs. And at that time, I was in my 20th year as at the Friedberg JCC's CEO in Oceanside, New York. And we had quite a number of day camps operating, but no medical camps. And so I got interested and I started looking to see, in the rudimentary Google that was available in 2006, I started looking to see who was doing summer day camps for children with cancer. And I only found 2. They were both 1-week programs, one before the summer and one after the summer, because they were basically using campgrounds that were being used for other things. I wondered if, why. And so I started talking to hospitals in the area. And what I basically learned was you needed almost a perfect storm in order to be able to put something like this together on a day camp basis. Sleepaway camps, you can take a child from basically anywhere, fly them to the sleepaway camp, right? They'll stay there for a week and then you fly them home. But with day camps, you have to have a critical mass of children with the same illness in an area where there are enough kids that you can pick them up, get them home get them up to camp within an hour's driving time, then get them home at the end of the day. You need hospitals that will support the work. You need a philanthropic community if you're going to do it for free. You need campgrounds that are going to be within an hour's driving time of where most of these children are. So, when you put all these factors together, it was no wonder that nobody had done it. But we were pretty scrappy, and we thought this sounded like something that we could do. There were 13 hospitals within driving distance of where our campgrounds were. 13 hospitals that had pediatric oncology units. And we thought maybe this is something that we could do. And so we set out to do it. We had to raise the money for it. We had to put it together. We had to do some physical work up at the campgrounds to make it accessible for all the children, any children who had mobility problems. It took us about 18 months. But in 2006, we opened the first Sunrise Day Camp, and it was here on Long Island where I'm sitting right now.
And now I think we have, 13 camps?
There are 13 physical camps and one virtual camp. And so we are now, up and down the East Coast from New York to Florida. We're in Chicago. We're in California. And we have 3 camps in Israel as well. And, all of these camps are just thriving and they're doing wonderful work.
Well, I just want to tell the audience, from firsthand experience, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, Amy and I, while we're certainly generous with our resources to support the organization financially, we were really touched when we were invited to participate as volunteers. And we were making candy necklaces and all kinds of different things with the children. They actually gave you a hug and a kiss, and you connect in a way that I've never connected with the recipient of any charity that I've given, and it was just very touching. In fact, last month we went back again, and I think we were volunteering at the ping pong table to give the games to those who didn't have a partner. But the way you guys do it, everything from the sanitary cloths everywhere and everybody making sure that the kids' environment is protected, but at the same time bringing in outsiders to give them that sense of acceptance, I guess, and normalcy is really, really special. I think that, I want to give a shout out to my good friend Mike Reisman, who I know, he owns the Gotham Comedy Club in Manhattan. Right. And I think he said 10 years ago or so he did his first event where they sell tickets all to support Sunrise one evening. And he said it was about $40,000 they raised the first year. And we went a couple months ago, and this year they raised almost $600,000, which sends how many kids get sent to camp on that?
About 80 or so, yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredible. Michael's a very special guy and fitting with the organization. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to Michael and the work he does with you guys. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is I did a podcast either earlier this year or late last year when we started the podcast that talked about why money can't buy happiness. And one of the main reasons is because there's a lot of reasons, but the main reasons is that because we use money to buy things, thinking those things are going to make us happy. A bigger car, a faster car, a bigger house, whatever it might be. And those things never make us happy because what the brain is craving is not the bigger house or the bigger car. It's craving the dopamine rush that you get in anticipation of getting those things. As soon as you get the thing, you want another dopamine rush. So that's why we keep going and going. And I've interviewed a bunch of and worked with over my career in wealth management, a bunch of entrepreneurs. And that's kind of what motivates them to keep going. They start a business, it's a rush, and they want to do another business. But from my perspective, that's not likely what motivated you as a CEO and entrepreneur in a real sense to found this kind of organization. So I want you to talk a little bit about, is there that kind of a dopamine rush, that gets you going every day, every week, that you're excited to see the good that you're doing for all of these children and families firsthand? Or what is it that motivates someone like you to keep going, expanding, putting all your life's work into something that you're clearly not doing for the reason that I described a lot of the traditional entrepreneurs do what they do for?
It's a great question, and there are so many parts to an answer on that. I think for me, the rush is the children. I've come to know so many of them and so many of the families and so many of the stories. And knowing that we have an opportunity to provide them with a summer where they're not cancer patients, but they're children again, which is what they were supposed to be until something went wrong. It's an incredible feeling to know that you have a hand in putting something like this together and making sure that it happens every year over and over again. When we bring doctors out to the camps or nurses out to the camps who have seen these children in the hospitals, they say that they don't recognize them. These are children who lay in hospital beds or who sit in chemo and they're miserable and they're hurting and they're scared. And then they come to camp and, it's just pure joy. They're singing, they're shouting, they're doing cheers, they're playing sports, they're doing crafts, they're outdoors, they're eating ice cream, they're doing all the things that kids are supposed to do during the summer. That got disrupted in their lives by something that they had no control over. And so if we have an opportunity to give them back some of that control or to take some of that control away, if you will, from the cancer and move it back into the childhood, it's an amazing thing to be able to do. The other part to me is just, I think, is the community that I work with. This huge community of philanthropists and thinkers and people who just want to get involved for all the right reasons, right? And it's I know I've listened to some of the stuff on your podcast. I know you talk about, what wealth really means and how you invest and how for us, it's like, it's not just how you invest your money, how do you invest your time? How do you invest your thinking? And to be able to make a difference for these people who feel abandoned by life, it's the most incredible thing. And I think that, for me, traveling throughout the country and seeing these camps in action and feeling that they all have our DNA, if you will. It's a sunrise camp when you show up. From the moment the children are getting off the buses and the counselors are cheering them on and they're there in the silly costumes and all this, and they're making the children just feel wonderful. That's the best rush of all, just to see the smiles. And this is not what these children live with ordinarily. And it's just an amazing thing.
So Arnie, let me start to wind down by asking you how you encourage people to continually be involved with their resources, and how do you get them to even get more involved? We just do it. Amy and I just do it out of the love and the evolution of our involvement and so forth. It just naturally has been happening. But I'm just curious to know if there's a particular approach that you guys take, because I know how successful you've been. You told me the first year you raised about $750,000, and now
it's about $14 million a year that we have to raise. Yeah,
right, man. That's a huge jump. So how do you perpetuate that continuously?
I mean, we're always talking to people like you, for instance. People who know other people and who can.
So you're talking to chubby Jewish guys with curly hair and glasses.
Yeah, talking to smart guys who understand giving and charity and all of that. But the best way that we can continue to succeed is to keep on, connecting to more and more people who have capacity to give, and to just give them, let them have an opportunity to learn about us and to see whether or not this would be something that they care about. This is an amazing country when it comes to charitable giving. We probably have more wealth per capita than any other country, and we also give more than any other country does. I think it was about $600 billion last year. That was given to United States charities, and 2/3 of that came from individuals. So the question is, well, how do you choose a charity, and how do you want to give? For us, there's first of all, we're in so many people's backyards. You can come and see exactly what your money is being used for, and you can see the joy that you're putting on these children's faces. Your money's not going to disappear into a black hole somewhere. You're going to see exactly what it does. I'm always very proud to talk about the fact that Sunrise has a platinum rating from GuideStar and a 4-star rating from Charity Navigator. Only 1% of not-for-profits get that platinum rating, and it's because of our transparency, and it's because of our governance, and it's how we operate, and our financials are clear and transparent and strong. But the big thing is that we never set out to build just a camp for children with cancer. What we set out to build was the best camp in the world for children anywhere that would be for these kids. And so when you talk about your experiences and what you've seen when you come out to visit us and, your experiences with the children, we do everything that we possibly can to create the best summer experience possible for them. And I think that's what people see. It's that commitment to excellence that we have. It's the commitment to the children and the families that we have. It's the way that we, manage our organization, our financials, our board of directors that's highly involved, et cetera, and we have tens of thousands of people who donate, on different levels. And they do it because they know this. Look, cancer is something that unfortunately we're all 2 or 3 degrees away from, and some of us are a lot closer to it. And then when you think about how, the horrors of cancer, and then you put that on a child, you understand why it's so important that we give them back some sense of normalcy. And I think everybody can relate to that in some way. And, we just want to, have the opportunity to engage more people. And I think that, the work that we're doing will speak for itself.
But just speaking about close to it, just about a little over a year ago, my executive assistant, who was like family with us, Jacqueline, had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and it changes. You see how it changes everything. Outlook of just everything in general. Ability to tell you're tired all the time. Ability to work. Ability to stay positive. And so we can only imagine for a child. But thankfully, she's fully recovered now and doing well. But yeah, you're right. We're always very connected to it. One of the things that has led me to and Amy to become more and more involved is having gone to the camp, having seen the end user and interacted with them. What percentage would you say of your donors have done that?
Well, I've never really considered percentage. It's certainly not the majority of people. Right. The majority of people are sending in gifts or, we're working with corporations or foundations and all of that.
The reason I ask is if you can get someone with the organizations or the foundations, this, I'm sure intuitively, to come once at some point, I think that would propel without even asking for anything.
It does.
It certainly did with
me. It's the most effective tool that we have in terms of fundraising is to just expose people to what it is that we're doing. Once you see the camp and you see what these kids are, you see the joy on their faces and you just hear the sounds of what's going on around, you want to be part of it.
Well, as I get more involved with the organization, I'm going to volunteer to have that as part of my mission, is to reach out to all these people and get them one way or other committed to come to camp. And lastly, why don't we tell people how they can? Well, first I want to just to my clients who are listening. You recently your co-honoree was a family that I'm very close with. One of the best families on Long Island I know, the Goodman family of Sherwood Lumber, and that's also, you're surrounding yourself not only with donors but good people. But tell me how people can find out more about the organization and if they want to get involved and add this to some of the legacy that we're helping them create for their family and all their endeavors. How can they do it?
Well, the easiest way is to go on our website, which is www.sunriseassociation.org. And it'll give you all sorts of information about us and all sorts of opportunities to become involved. And of course, on the website is all the contact information for anybody in our organization whom you might want to touch base with. We'd love to have a conversation with anyone who's interested on any level of helping us. We rely on people from all stratas and all economic stratas, and there are all sorts of opportunities for people to engage with us, and we would love it. So www.sunriseassociation.org.
Thank you, Arnie, and thanks for joining us today, and thanks for all that you and the organization do for all these families who are so deserving and prior to your initiative, I guess, didn't have the quality of life given their misfortune that they have today. So thanks again.
I appreciate it very much. Good to be with you.
Yeah. You too.
Take care.
Thank you all for joining us on today's edition of Crazy Wealthy Podcast. It's one that's very meaningful to me personally, and hopefully for those who have room in their charitable endeavors, they can add the Sunrise Day Camp. I can tell you again firsthand what a special organization it is, and the good that you're doing for these children and families. When you look in their eyes, you don't need to ask any questions to know whether or not they appreciate it. So anyway, till next time, you can find us on all your favorite podcast venues and our website, crazywealthypodcast.com, as well as our fusionfamilywealth.com website. Stay tuned to hear Amy's call-in for the recap of today's episode.
Hi, honey.
Hello there, honey. How are you?
I am good. It's a lovely September day. I think we're nearing the end of summer as of today, so another season down.
Well, I had a good summer with you. This was one of the better ones, right?
Well, it's always a good summer with me, so, that's nothing new.
Yeah, you feel exactly the same way.
I feel the same way that any summer
right?
with me is a great summer, exactly.
Right, exactly.
But talking of summers, I know you had a phone call with one of the highlights, with a man who was one of the highlights of our summer today, of this year, from when we went to Sunrise to participate in their carnival. So tell me about your call with Arnie.
Yeah, Arnie Preminger. So it was great to have him on the podcast. He's the founder and the CEO of Sunrise Day Camps. And it was a great story because I really didn't know the full story of what led to the founding and why he was motivated to do it and all those kinds of things. So those are the kinds of things we talked about.
And I actually happen to know the story because I had listened to him on a previous podcast. If I recall, it had something to do with Paul McCartney and the Hole in the Wall gang, which is Paul Newman's foundation.
That's right. So he's a huge Beatles fan, and he saw that Paul McCartney was going to be appearing at Avery Fisher Hall, which he was really excited about because it's an intimate setting. I went to the box office and bought the tickets, but he hadn't realized that it was a benefit concert. So when he got into the concert, they started talking about the charity that it was to benefit, which was Paul Newman's Hole in the Wall gang. And what they did is they had sleepaway camps for kids with serious chronic illnesses, not just cancer. And when he was watching some of the former campers or some of the parents for campers who unfortunately who were deceased, he really somehow in his head got the idea that this would be something great in the form of a day camp for kids with cancer. And the whole thing is that kids with cancer, right, it's different than some other chronic illnesses. They need to be close to medical care all the time, right? So they really can't go to a sleepaway camp. And the other thing is the challenges logistically that aren't, and whatever group of advisors that he started working with had to overcome were that you had to have a lot of kids with the same illness in the same concentrated area, right? Because the camp bus has to pick you up. It has to be an hour from the camp, get you home. And so it was a logistical, like he called perfect storm, to find a place where you can have all the hospitals, a lot of children with the same illness together, a lot of people who are willing to fund it, donors, right, who can afford it. So they did that. They weren't daunted by that task. And
fortunately, in the New York,
together.
Long Island area, you do have that. And I'm not sure you discussed this in the podcast, but we have a lot of personal connections. Our older daughter worked there for a bunch of years, and it was probably one of the most meaningful summers of her life, those few summers that she was there. She got very close to her campers, and she even served as a general during their color war. So I remember that. And one of our employees, Jeff Blick, who a lot of you know is a very big fundraiser for Sunrise, and he and his family have raised tons of money through Sunrise walks. And then we have
And Abby, his daughter, has worked there for many years.
That is true. And then we have our close friend, Michael Reisman, who is a comedian, owns Gotham Comedy Club. Shout out to Michael. And
I want to talk about that for a second. Yeah, because I talk about it in the podcast.
As always.
Yes, I'm stealing your thunder. So 2 things. Arnie told me, I asked him how much money they raised initially. The first year, I think it was about $750,000. You know how much they raise per year now?
It's got to be well over a couple $1 million.
Yeah, 7 times that, $14 million.
Wow.
And Michael alone this year, in his first year at Gotham about 10 years ago, where he uses the club for one night just to raise money for this charity, was $40,000 or so. This year it was almost 600,000, sending about, I think, 80 kids to camp. So
That's
really remarkable.
so amazing. I want to bring it back to, the reason why we had him on this call is, we usually talking about money issues, but, he's not motivated by money. He's motivated by altruism and doing good. Like, what makes someone psychologically do that? Just want to give back.
I asked him that question, and I told him he's an entrepreneur in the real sense, right? Even though he didn't do this to make money. I said, what is it that motivated you and what motivates you every day? He said, when I look at the getting more and more money doesn't motivate me, but taking more and more children who are unhappy and want to just be children, but this terrible thing just happened to roll into their life and change that for them, seeing the smile on their face every day, and the more smiles I see is like getting more money. That's his dopamine rush.
It's a very special person. And he's lucky that he has people like you in his world who try and make more and more money for other people so that they can give back to him as well.
Well, it's not just money. Like, recently, the Goodman family were co-honorees, and it's just so special for me to have people like that in my life where, one, I guess I play a role in making them feel good about giving the money, or helping them preserve and make their money. But it's really just having those people in my life and people.
Well, it's also that you've put them on a plan where not only they can support themselves and their families and leave a legacy, but they can leave a lasting legacy to charities like Sunrise.
But they're just wonderful people. They're very generous, charitable-wise, basically, and it's just nice to be a part of all that.
Well, that'll lead us into a good segue that the next podcast could possibly be with the Goodman family and hearing their story. So I think we can leave it with that. What do you think?
I think you're right, but I didn't give you permission to talk about my future podcast.
Listen, John, you should know after 30-something years, I don't need your permission. I take my own permission. And, if you roll with the punches, then you can stay on my train. If not, find another train.
If you said something like that to me 30 years ago, I might have find another train. But the fare now is half of what I own, so I'm going to stay on this train.
Exactly. You're worth much more staying married to me than you would if you left me. So having said that, we wish everyone a happy end of summer, a happy beginning of fall. And, if you can find it in your heart to look up Sunrise Day Camp and, give back. It doesn't have to be money. It could be time, and it could be anything. So it's a great organization.
All right. And giving time, by the way, to them is great. Like when we volunteer there, you know how we feel after we spend time with the kids making jewelry or playing games with them at the carnival. There's nothing more rewarding than that.
No, I know. They think we're doing something for them, but we get much more out of it, I think, at the end of the day.
It's true. All right. Thank you, honey.
All right. Have a good one. Have a good one, everyone.
You too.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Crazy Wealthy Podcast. For more insights, resources, and to sign up for our newsletter, visit crazywealthypodcast.com. Until then, stay crazy wealthy.
The previous podcast by Fusion Family Wealth, LLC, Fusion, was intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the podcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Fusion or any other investment professional of your choosing. Different types of investments involve varying degrees of risk, and it should not be assumed that future performance of any specific investment or investment strategy, or any non-investment related or planning services, discussion, or content will be profitable, be suitable for your portfolio or individual situation. Neither Fusion's investment advisor registration status, nor any amount of prior experience or success should be construed that a certain level of results or satisfaction will be achieved if Fusion is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. Fusion is neither a law firm nor accounting firm, and no portion of its services should be construed as legal or accounting advice. No portion of the video content should be construed by a client or prospective client as a guarantee that he or she will experience a certain level of results if Fusion is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. A copy of Fusion's current written disclosure brochure discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request or at www.fusionfamilywealth.com.